Good day. It's Lyle Johnson back on the airwaves after a while and have some medical things that need to be dealt with. And now I'm happy and healthy as can be to be back on here. So with Musha this week, and I'm your host, and hoping to share a really a good story today. I know that you're going to find it, as I did, quite fascinating. So I'd like to welcome to the show is retired Master Warrant Officer John Thomson, who serves as a medic in the Canadian Armed Forces and has retired out and become a civil servant working at the base hospital, the clinic here in Moose Jaw. And he's representing the Valour in the Presence of the Enemy, which is an organization that wants to maintain and upgrade, if possible, activities that have resulted in people being awarded citations. So, John, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, and the organization, let's just talk about this. I've never heard of that organization until I saw it in new local media recently. Tell me what it is and where it comes from.
Yeah, so Valour in the Presence of the Enemy is an organization, a nonprofit that was started by some retired military and filmmakers, including retired General Rick Hillier, to advocate on behalf of Afghan veterans who served with distinction in the Afghan War, looking to upgrade their citations and their awards based on their bravery in battle. And so they've been doing that now for, I think it's about 2 years. And they started a petition, and they're really just doing excellent work in trying to bring the valor of Canadians who fought in Afghanistan to the forefront.
And that's certainly a worthy thing. There's a little background history to this. Victoria Cross is the top medal, not top citation that can be awarded to a soldier for bravery in battle. And it's been in existence since 1868 or 69. And it's only 99 Canadians have received this recognition since the creation of that award. And in 2004, 2005, I'm not exactly sure when, the award was made in the British Commonwealth. And each of the Commonwealth countries decided they would like to take on their own recognition factor. And so Canada took over the awarding of this recognition. And nobody has ever got the award since then. And it's, I'm not sure why, but it certainly brings into question when you hear about Jessie Larochelle's efforts, that you would say, why wouldn't he be recognized he's already got the Star of Military Valor, which is the second highest award that you can receive in the Canadian Forces for bravery. He's already been awarded that. But there are those like General Rick Hillier, who at the time was Chief of Defense Staff, and this is one of his soldiers, and he's going to stand up for his soldiers and say, my people deserve that, which is because he's very much a soldier's officer. He took great interest in the welfare and the treatment of his troops. So, John, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I guess Canada is one of the few Commonwealth countries, or countries in general, that had soldiers in Afghanistan that hasn't awarded its highest level award for bravery in that war. So it's interesting that in comparison to our fellow nations, that we haven't deemed the actions of our soldiers to be worthy of that award. And I think that's why it's so important that this work is being done, so that those soldiers who performed at that unbelievable level are properly recognized for what they did, in relation to their peers who achieved the same outcomes, but also to work at getting that standard achievable for future conflicts. Because if we've got this award and it's achievable, what's the point of having it?
Yeah.
Especially, when you read Jessie Larochelle's citation and the account of what he did that day, it's inspirational. And, it's hard to fathom what more could be done to be presented that Canadian Victoria Cross.
Or certainly, and we're talking about Private Jessie Larochelle, who was a Royal Canadian Regiment soldier, a private. In 14th October 2006, he was manning a machine gun post, which he actually volunteered to do. It wasn't like, this is your job today. I said, who wants to go to the observation post out front? And he said, I'll go. And he went out there, and he was, they were attacked by a group of Taliban soldiers. And during the very initial part of the battle, his machine gun position, which he was operating, was hit by a grenade or a mortar. I'm not sure which it was, and knocked him unconscious, out of commission. 2 of his soldiers who were with him were killed, and the other 3 who were with him were all wounded. And he came to, and realizing that he was at the front point and there were these 20 plus Taliban insurgents attacking him, took into his hands the protection of his soldiers and the treatment and the defense of his position. Now that's a pretty good soldier. But when you realize that he only had, his machine gun was knocked out by the blast of the mortar, he didn't have that to use. All he had were rockets and some hand grenades to repel these people. But he had a fair good supply and battled them off. But so he said, yeah, that's worthy of recognition. So then, John, tell me again, for the other people, what were subsequent information about him that we found out that make it even more of an act of bravery and gallantry?
Yeah. So the day before the attack, where he distinguished himself, one of their lavs had hit an IED, and so it was recovered back to Kandahar, and a number of his section had to accompany that vehicle back, and so they were already short manned on the ground, and then, like you said, he volunteered to go up into the OP and man that C6 machine gun. But when the attack happened, it turns out that the new information that came to light was that the LAV 3 gun turrets had jammed. And so essentially, Private Larochelle was the only sustained fire on that flank to keep the enemy from overrunning the position. And it wasn't discovered until afterwards that he had sustained severe injuries to his neck and back with fractured vertebrae. So he realized the machine gun was broken, and he picked up the 15 M72 rockets and started firing them at the Taliban that were advancing. And then the next day, when they had repatriated the fallen to Kandahar airfield to do the repatriation ceremony, he took part and helped to carry the flag draped caskets onto the aircraft to depart for Canada. And all of that, while dealing with, shattered vertebrae. So just, it gives you goosebumps to think of, well, what kind of mettle it takes to be able to do that. And, I just can't fathom a country that wouldn't recognize that sort of, bravery and just, commitment to their peers to get that.
Yeah, and in addition, the medical injuries we talk about, yes, he had a fractured vertebrae in his neck. So basically, he had a broken back, broken neck. But he also, the explosion blew out one of his eardrums, and also damaged one of his eyes. So he had a detached retina. So he's trying to deal with that kind of pain, that kind of injury, while still supporting his fellow troopmates. And it's you go like, well, yeah. Why wouldn't he be recognized at the highest level? But there's been some, I think it's politicking in some ways. People set the standard, and maybe they don't really want to set a base point. And so they say, well, it's easier to say give him a second best medal, and nobody's going to argue that. But I think in this case, he certainly has some grounds for having his recognition upgraded.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is that, you know, this isn't an attempt to sort of subvert the award process. Like all that valor in the presence of the enemy is asking is for a review of the circumstances based on the new evidence that's come to light from, you know, the input that they've had from friends of Jesse's, as well as his brother, and from Jesse himself, so that the Governor General's Awards Committee can look at the criteria and look at the new events or the new information, and then reevaluate to see if it's warranted. And that's all they're asking for now, is that reevaluation.
Yeah. And what can people do? Like just generally person watching the show, what can they do to help support this?
Yeah, there's right now, I mean, there was a petition E3636 that was sponsored by the NDP's MP Nikki Ashton, and that's closed as of the 2nd of March. But people can still write to, you know, their member of parliament, their member of the Legislative Assembly. They can talk to their mayors. You know, anybody who's willing to write a letter to the Governor General or to the Minister of National Defense, even the Chief of Defense Staff, just to say, like, we are aware of this initiative. We are aware of what, you know, Private Larochelle did and what he's went through and what he's going through currently. And we think it's worthwhile that he be evaluated and reconsidered for being presented the Victoria Cross, or the Canadian Victoria Cross.
And our current MP is, of course, a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces. So I would certainly hope that he would take a little initiative for this. It's not like Jesse is not from around Moose Jaw. He's from Ontario.
That's correct, yeah.
And but that doesn't diminish the fact that as we have a great connection with the Canadian Armed Forces here in our community, and it would be a worthwhile supported message if our MP was to take it up. But also, it's a lot of important things that we have to recognize to people, not just in peacetime, but also in war, that they get recognized for the great effort that they have put forward on behalf of our country.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier before recording, but you know, the Hugh Cairns Armory in Saskatoon is named after a Victoria Cross winner. And you know, here in Moose Jaw, we have the Saskatchewan Dragoons. We've got 15 wing. You know, there's Air Cadets and Army Cadets. There's the connection with Saskatchewan has with you know, its armed forces members is significant. And you know, some of the finest I served with are certainly from Saskatchewan, and I say that with a slight bit of bias. But you know, I think that if Jessie Larochelle was from, you know, Wynyard or from Kindersley or, you know, any other Saskatchewan community, we'd want people to advocate on his behalf as well. And so I think that, you know, using that mindset, if we say, you know, we would do this if it was one of ours, we should do it if it's, you know, for somebody else's as well. For
sure. Well, John, I saw, as I said at the start of the show, I saw you on City Council making a presentation, and I thought it's certainly worthwhile that we share this with our friends and other members of our community who have a great history of supporting people. Yeah, there's 4 Victoria Cross recipients who have direct connections to Moose Jaw and the service units here. Like Hugh Cairns, as you mentioned, was actually a member of the 46th Battalion in Moose Jaw in World War I, and that's how he received his as a member of this regiment representing Moose Jaw. But there's others, of course. So I want to say thank you for taking this up and bringing it forward, and for your members of your group to make this a point of their lives to support people in carrying on and recognizing outstanding efforts. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for making the presentation to council. I know our mayor is a former member of the forces when he was a young fellow, and he's had a great affection for supporting things like this. So thanks. And we're out of time.
That's okay.
Darn. But again, thanks very much. And if there's any information people would, if you got a contact information that you'd like, if you wanted to talk to you about this or get information from you.
Yeah, I mean, I run a veteran blog, so if people wanted to email me, I'm at www.unbloused.com. Or if you go on Instagram, you can follow Valour in the Presence of the Enemy. They've got a great Instagram profile, and they share a lot of great military historical information. So if you just go on and search Valour in the Presence of the Enemy or 100th Fort Victoria Cross, you should be able to find them and make sure you give them a follow.
Okay. Thanks very much, John.
All right. Thanks so much, Lal.
And thanks to you for watching, you guys. And we'll hope to see you again soon on Moose Jaw this week.